Hi everyone, this is the video to explain what we're going to be working on for major project number 3. The assignment for major project number 3, the document that I have on screen here now is in the folder called major project number 3, which is in the course document section. But I just want to go through and explain what's going on with this project to make sure you're clear about what's happening. Of course, if you have any questions uh, uh, about what's going on with this project after the video, please make sure to email me and let me know. Make sure you're clear on what you need to do. And then, of course, after I talk about the project, there's another video that will talk about how to complete the outline assignment, which is going to be due on Tuesday, May 5th. So, major project number 3 assignment. I start off with a definition, assimilation. Some of you may be familiar with that word, but it says up here that assimilation is the process in which a member of a minority group adopts the values, behaviors, and beliefs of the majority group. So what that means is, for our purposes, we've got a lot of characters from other countries coming to the United States, or maybe in the case of something like everyday use, characters who are from the United States but are still kind of seen in the minority, right? They don't fit in with the majority culture around them, the mainstream culture around them. And so assimilation is the process by which that minority group adopts those values, behaviors, and beliefs of the majority group. The stories How to Date a Brown Girl, Black Girl, White Girl, or Halfie, We Came All the Way from Cuba So You Could Dress Like This, Hell Heaven, Saving Saturday, and Everyday Use all contain conflicts that come from one family member or of the one member of the family assimilating into mainstream American culture by abandoning certain cultural values or traditions. So that's something that happens in the stories. We can see that in We Came All the Way from Cuba So You Could Dress Like This. The whole idea that she's kind of becoming more American than her parents are comfortable with. We can see that in Hell Heaven, when we've got the character, intermarriage, and one of the characters, not having a traditional Bengali wedding. So it runs through all of these stories. And so I say here that for major project number 3, you'll need to write about any one, emphasize one. You're only writing about one of the stories. Choose one and stick with it. You're not comparing or contrasting or anything like that. You're writing about one of those stories. And discuss how the author uses symbols and or metaphors to communicate his or her ideas about this process of giving up family traditions and values in order to assimilate. What does the author want to tell us about what is gained and what is lost when the characters give up those traditions and values? And what does the author want to say about whether the trade-off is worth it? So there is this kind of a trade-off, right? That is, there's this sense in which some of you have already written about this in some of your discussion questions. There's a sense in which when somebody decides to assimilate to the mainstream culture, there may be some things that are going to be lost. They may lose their language. They may lose connections to family. Again, I've talked about it that many of you have probably experienced something like this. So what is it that the authors want to tell us about this assimilation? What are the characters trading off, and to what extent is it worth it for them to make those choices? So, as always, this project must have a thesis, right? That is, and it has to be more specific than the prompt. That is more specific than what I said above. That is, sometimes I think what happens is we might say, look, that's what you said in your prompt, and I'm just going to kind of rephrase the prompt back. That's something that high school teachers might have told you to do, to write a thesis, just kind of rephrase the prompt. But when I give you the prompt, I'm giving you something very broad because I want you to come back with your own individual ideas. That means that your thesis needs to be more specific than the prompt, okay? So I give an example of something that will not work, right? Be clear that this one is not working. So, for example, if you were writing about the lesson, And I say you cannot write about that story. It's not listed above. I'm just using it as an example. But if you were writing about that, you could not have a thesis that says, in the lesson, Toni Cade Bambara uses the clown as a symbol to show how Sylvia is willing to assimilate into mainstream American culture. And I say that this would not work as a thesis because it doesn't show a specific understanding of what happens in the story. When I'm looking at that thesis, I'm not seeing much more than what I'd already put on the page for this assignment. So I want to have a thesis, want you to have a thesis that's going to be much more specific than that, that's already going to show you thinking about some of the details. And that's something we've been talking about all semester, the idea that right from the beginning, from your introduction, from your thesis, you need to be much more specific about where you're going. Okay, that's again, a lot of times that's the comment that I'm making. Try to be much more specific early on about the thesis. It is sometimes a hard thing for us to get our minds around, but it is going to be important. We have to have a very clear and specific thesis early on. So let's see what that better thesis might look like. I say here, you could write, in the lesson, Toni Cade Bambara uses the clown as a symbol to show us how Sylvia is willing to give up the comfort and familiarity of the culture in her African American neighborhood in order to join the largely white American culture, which has greater economic opportunities. So see, that one's a lot more specific. As I noticed that the second thesis tells us specifically what Sylvia feels that she will give up, comfort and familiarity, right? That's not in the prompt that I gave you. You had to go and think, I had to go and think about that, to think about what specifically she's might be willing to give up. And I also show what she will gain, greater economic opportunities. So in the thesis, I'm showing what that trade-off is. What is it that she is going to have to give up, and what is it that she's going to get? And realize that different characters might be giving up different things and gaining different things. So Nea, in saving Sardi, is not necessarily gaining economic opportunities when she's going to be assimilating. She's going to be gaining something else potentially. And what is that? And so you have to define that, and that should be part of your thesis. So I say your thesis should do the same. That is, be this specific. What specifically will the character give up, and what will he or she get in return? I say down here, realize, of course, that some of the characters, such as Saudi, herself, and Maggie, not Nea. Nea in the story is going to is going to try to assimilate, but Saudi and Maggie are not willing to give up their cultures to enter into mainstream American society. Right? Those are two characters who kind of stay with their home culture. Right? They aren't changing that much. So you can write about those characters who refuse to give up their home cultures, but your thesis will need to discuss what specific elements of their culture they are refusing to give up and what specific opportunities they might be missing out on. So it's kind of like a reverse with them. So if you come across them or any other characters, I mean, if you wanted to, you could maybe talk about the father in We Came All the Way from Cuba So You Could Dress Like This, kind of his unwillingness to completely assimilate into American culture, kind of holding on to his Cuban past. Why does he do that, and what does he give up by doing that? So again, you can write about either side of this. The decision to give up something in order to become more American, or the refusal to give up something to become more American. Either one would work, but again, your thesis has to be very specific about what it is that they might be giving up and what it is that they might be gaining. Okay, and just like other projects, it needs to be 3 pages long in an MLA format. I have down here the rubric. Again, as usual, this project is not graded. That is, you get the full credit for completing it as long as it's up to length. But the rubric provides you a sense of what specifically you'll need to improve as you rewrite your rough draft for your final draft. So You want to make sure that the essay has a clear thesis that addresses how symbols and or metaphors, and you can choose which ones you want, help us understand the ways in which the story addresses assimilation. The thesis is supported by quotes from the story. Again, it's very important that you have specific quotes from the story to help support your ideas, and clear explanations of how those quotes relate back to the thesis. So that's an important part of developing the body paragraphs in your essay. This essay shows an understanding of figurative language. This is similar to what we've had before. The essay follows MLA format, which is exactly what we've had before, and the essay is free of grammatical and mechanical errors, which is exactly what we've had before. Again, those are the things that I'm going to be looking for with that. So keep that in mind. That is what I'm looking for. And then, again, if you have any questions about what it is you're supposed to be doing, please email me, ask me. If you have a question, it means somebody else probably has a question. So what I'll do, if I get a question from you, I might send that question out through the announcements in Blackboard, because I'm like, oh, you know, the student, you guys weren't completely understanding what I was saying about that. I wasn't as clear about that as I could have been. So make sure that if you have any questions that you are asking me. And then the next video in the folder is the one about how to complete the outline assignment. So the outline assignment is an assignment, kind of a stepping stone to help make sure that you are on the right track towards writing this project. So after you've watched this and you understand what the assignment for the project is, then you can go through and watch the video about the outline to figure out what the best way is for you to go about completing your outline assignment that's going to, as we said, is going to be due on May 5th. So watch that video, and again, as always, let me know if you have any questions.